I will not talk about the Flash.
Nobody's gonna die because
I
of
won't.
us. I want to talk about the
You want to
Flash.
relive the final nail in
Yes,
the coffin
I do.
of the DCEU? Is that what you want to do?
But what are you gonna do?
Let's talk about the Flash.
Let's talk about the Flash.
So everyone, I just got done seeing The Flash. Now, this was a film that I wasn't sure I was going to support. As you know, as a DC Comics fan, it's been a sombering time since the reboot announcement, since other comic book shows have been canceled. Just everything's changing. And it's not bad, but I don't think it was necessary, you know? And these last batch of films are pretty much what's left of the Walter Hamada era of WB. There was a different plan to go into Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, James Gunn is kind of changing some things. They're going a more of a comedic route. And one thing I want to preface is this is going to have spoilers. So if you have never seen The Flash, watch it before seeing this video. Or if you're like me, you might have been spoiled online, or you may not care. That's fine. For me, I would have enjoyed this movie much more if it wasn't for the assholes leaking out all the Easter eggs and cameos. It ruined it. Between that and the trailer showing about 90% of the film, some of that I think is because of Ezra Miller. Their real life stuff probably forced the studio to market the other characters, which had smaller roles. So because they had smaller roles, they probably showed the majority of their footage. That being said, this film is kind of a weird in between of like a love letter to DC Comics and a desecration of it. And I'll go more into detail here, but one thing that has to stop is the ugliness and toxicity of fans. And that's not Snyder fans, and that's not just DC Comics fans. It's both, just fans in general. You need to cool it, get a life, go out and touch some grass. It's just sad seeing the predicament. There's a schism right now in the DC comic fandom that just breaks my heart. And me, of course, there's some DC properties and films I like more than others. I'm much more in tune to the serious stuff, more than the comedic. But I appreciate everything. You know, the way I look at it is that filmmakers, storytellers are like comic book writers and artists. There's a different run. Each film incarnation is a different run in a character. And by diversifying the films, you allow the characters to reinvent themselves and to withstand the test of time. I mean, that's why these characters have been so enduring. I see a lot of stuff about like, this isn't Snyder's. Of course not. But the Snyder Cut, I will say, is canon in this version, and these are his characters. Some of the CG reminded me a bit of Justice League, but I don't think it's near that bad as far as like the story elements. There's some comedic stuff that is a bit different that you have to get used to. But the thing is, the Flash is a more lighthearted character. This film had a very kind of Back to the Future and 90s sensibility. It reminded me of the 90s show. There are moments of this film that I absolutely love. Other moments that I felt like were a missed opportunity. You know, I'll go more into detail, but overall, this film was overhyped, I felt. It was not the best superhero movie ever made. As a matter of fact, I kind of wish they didn't do the early screenings as much and just decided to release it. Second of all, it does have some bad CGI. And by bad, I mean it looks like it's unfinished. It doesn't look quite as polished, especially when you look at the Man of Steel scenes and compare them to like Zack Snyder's film from 10 years ago to like right now. It's like, really? And there's some moments in the third act that felt like they reshot certain things. They were supposed to go a different way. That, I think, hurt the film, but I actually really enjoyed The Flash more than I thought I would. It was almost a nice love letter kind of bow to wrap the DCEU in. Almost. But I have to say, right out of the bat, I love the opening of the film, showing all the different Warner Brothers logos and DC logos. The way it started super fast reminded me a little bit of the Matrix films in the first trilogy. And then showing a clock. I don't know, something about it reminded me very much of Matrix. But the opening, the first act is like a DC animated episode come to life. Like, I loved it. It's everything you want post-Justice League, you know, as far as a team working together, as far as the world building. Finally seeing characters interact more. No headless cameos. We get to have Batman. Ben Affleck's better than ever here. He has a different type of armor suit that doesn't look quite as polished as his other ones, but I think it was a suit that was primarily for his Batpod, that bike. If they didn't give most of the action footage away in the trailers, this would have been even better. Like, I kind of wish I went in blind. It was fun, more than I thought it was going to be. They showed The Flash. Ezra Miller, despite what they've done in real life and some of the allegations that have been proven and have been dropped, whatever, despite their mental state, they do a good job here. And it's kind of bittersweet because I think if it was a female actress or like a minority, I think if it was, say, Hispanic or African American, they would have fired them and reshot the film. They didn't do that here. But that being said, he gives one hell of a performance, and it's about time that we had his own solo film. I mean, this has been in development for ages, since The Flash first came out on CW. Now that show's over. But I love this. Would I have liked to see Rick Famuyiwa's Flash with Reverse Flash? Abso-freaking-lutely. Would I have loved to see the original Flashpoint that had Jeffrey D. Morgan's Batman? Absolutely. Atlanteans, Amazonians at war? Sure. This is a loose adaptation of the Flashpoint story, and the beginning has this terrorist attack, and we get to see this hospital attacked, and Barry has to save these babies. That was a weird scene. There was some CGI that looked real, and the other ones, they just looked kind of alien-like, and just, it looked weird. It looked like they're almost dead babies for a while. And then the microwave, like, even though it was unplugged, it just, I don't know, something about it was just very bizarre. But it was a cool use of his Speed Force. We got to see more slow motion in a different way. And there is a prequel comic that came out from DC Comics that explains how he went from the blue lightning to the orange-red lightning with the new suit. I love Alfred. It was nice seeing Jeremy Irons, seeing Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, Ben Affleck's Batman. And that's primarily the reason why I saw this film, is that it's pretty much done. I want to remember the Snyder Cut as the high of the DCEU, but if this is the last time I'm going to get these characters, and perhaps even Michael Keaton, I wanted to check it out on the big screen, and the leaks really infuriated me. I had to check it out, and sadly, they ruined the film, and I just wish people weren't so toxic about it, you know? You have people who are like, you're Snyder fans, you don't love DC. You're DC Comics fans, real DC fans who like eating shit basically and don't like real stuff. And it's like, guys, both of the sides are dead wrong. There's a lot of fans like myself that love everything, some more than others, but I just wish the toxicity would stop with this and people give this a chance. Andy Muschietti, I loved his work in It Chapter 1 and 2, and he moves away from horror much like David Sandberg in Shazam. This film has a lot going for it, but I think for me, it's an accustomed taste to get used to the comedy. I've already kind of been done with comedy, like in the MCU films and the other DCEU films. But the comedy here is not too bad. Some of the Barry stuff is hilarious because Barry is kind of like that. He's a fun character, but there's some other comedy that just falls flat on its face, and I think it undercuts the emotion in this film, the more heartfelt moments. But I love this story. It's a very endearing story. In many ways, there's a lot of beats taken from the Flash TV show, and I must say, before I continue with the multiverse, I think this was better than Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but it suffers from some of the same issues I had with No Way Home. So far, the best use of a multiverse I've seen have been in Everything Everywhere All at Once, the Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse films, and then the Arrowverse, the way they did Crisis on Infinite Earths. Even though I thought they could have done more with that, I felt like they did it in a better way and it honored it in a better way than this. And even Titans to a degree when Gar Logan was in the red and we got to see different archive footage. The way they handled that, I felt was much more respectful than what they did later in this. I mean, it sounds like I'm nitpicking. I actually really enjoyed this film. I think it's worth buying on Blu-ray. And it's a fun beginning, and then we get to be introduced to Kiersey Clemons again as Iris West, and this is where like the first hint of it being connected to the Snyder Cut is, where it's just like, didn't we meet each other a couple of years ago, like after college? So they established the relationship, but then they also kind of briefly mentioned it, the rescue scene in the Snyder Cut in the chapter of The Flash. And I love that because it also enhances that movie where it's like, okay, he sees this girl, but like he recognizes her. It's not just a first time meeting. There's a history here. And I like that. I wish we got Henry Cavill's Superman. Supposedly might have shot some stuff later on that got cut. I don't know, but I really feel his absence in this one. Despite seeing the rest of the league, unfortunately, the real life drama, they couldn't come to an agreement, and the Warner Brothers just has an ego the size of a black hole, really. They could have rectifies certain things, amended the relationship between directors and then actors, and especially Ray Fisher. I would have loved to see what his role as Cyborg, how it would have been in this film originally. But overall, I like that he's mentioned. Other heroes are mentioned. There's some nice nods to Aquaman in the film itself. But I like the idea of time travel. And, we have a different actor here with Ron Livingston playing Henry Allen. Billy Crudup was supposed to play it, but because of COVID and the scheduling conflicts, he had to go shoot the morning show. And I still love the relationship here. I think Ron Livingston does a fantastic job. Probably the best person you can cast to replace Billy Crudup. But I felt like if you had the same Henry Allen as the other one, it would have enhanced it even more. And we also have Maribel Verdú as Nora Allen, and I like what they do here. They do something very different with Nora and Barry's background and his heritage, and I kind of like that. It surprised me, but the relationship he has with his mother is at the crux of this. This is like what makes the film and brings its most heartfelt moments. There is also Ian Lowe, who played Little Barry. Perfect casting. He looked like a young Ezra Miller. And speaking of young Ezra Miller, he plays two versions of himself. I actually did not find Ezra Miller that annoying as a Flash. More so in the theatrical Justice League than in the Snyder Cut or in Suicide Squad. I kind of like how he is kind of annoying, and our DCEU Barry is like aware of that now. He's just like, what's up with you? There's parts where he's just basically acting out what the audience is thinking at that moment. And I love how they did this. There's some moments where you could tell it's a little deep faked, but not too much. I mean, it's done very well. And I have to say that a lot of the leaks that came out and the footage on the trailers, it is unpolished, but I thought on the big screen it looked better than I thought it was going to look, considering some of the leaked footage and how it looked, I mean, of course the film's not going to look good off a projector, but it was great seeing Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne. He has a touching moment, and it's kind of bittersweet that this is the end of this specific universe. But what I love about this film is they have, like, the explanation of the DC multiverse and how it's not a linear strand. It's a pendulum effect. And I love how they explain that through Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne, and he's a very different Bruce Wayne. My one nitpick here is that this is a version of Tim Burton's Batman, but it's not necessarily Tim Burton's Batman entirely. Like, it is, but we don't really get to see Tim Burton's Gotham. We don't really get to see anything more beyond the mansion or the history of what happened in between Batman Returns and this film. And I would have loved to hear what happened. I mean, that's one thing they did in Spider-Man No Way Home, is that they kind of filled in the gaps of what happened after the Tobey Maguire trilogy and the Amazing Spider-Man films, Mark Webb's films. And that's one thing I wish they explored here. And I love how he's introduced, and they have some classic songs here. They have 25 or 6 to 4 by Chicago, and I wasn't expecting him to have long hair, but I love how it's in the kitchen from Batman 89, and that he's wearing a sweater that's similar to what Alfred wore in the 89 film. There's a lot of lines that they repeat that are good, but a lot of it was given away in the trailers. But I have to say, Michael Keaton was a badass Batman. I love seeing him back. I forgot how much I missed the Long Years Yellow Emblem and the Danny Elfman music when it's put with the proper Batman. It's not like Justice League where they just put it with Ben Affleck. Like, it fits with Keaton. That's his theme. That's his Batman. And it's kind of a weird hodgepodge of a multiverse here of what he does. He breaks the universe, so to speak. They also add a backstory where Barry was actually at the Black Zero event in Man of Steel with an early prototype suit, and he only was able to save a boy. He couldn't save the boy's father. That was an endearing scene that I loved. Seeing how he interacts with his parents and the life he had, the life the new Barry has, and the day it falls on with not only the day of his powers, but the day General Zod invaded Earth. That's cool. I love that. And there's some great comedy there. There's some loose adaptations to Flashpoint. Does the comedy go on too much? Yeah, especially like Barry Allen's tooth and other things like that. It kind of is a little nerve-wracking, kind of makes your eye roll. But if you love comedy or like an MCU movie, you might enjoy this. A lot of the comedy, as far as like Barry Allen's sense of humor, tends to work. It's nice seeing his co-workers and how they become his college friends in the other universe, how they talk about movies. In this universe, you have Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly instead of Michael J. Fox, or Kevin Bacon in Top Gun and Michael J. Fox in Footloose. So it's trippy. That's probably what would happen in a multiverse. There's probably a multiverse somewhere, a universe out there where Michael Keaton was in Batman Forever or Batman 3, or something. We would have had Justice League 2 already, with Darkseid's invasion. And Godfather 3 with Winona Ryder and Robert Duvall. Who knows? That's just funny to think about. But this film is really about learning to accept the mistakes and tragedies of the past, the scars of the past, embracing them, embracing who you are, and letting go. There's some problems that simply do not have a solution. And that's a strong theme here for not only Barry Allen as a hero, but as a universe for life, us as fans. This is a love letter in many ways, but I feel like it could have been more, you know. It was on the precipice of something great. It had wonderful ideas, but I don't think they were executed as properly as it should have been. Barry Allen decides to save his mother, like always. And when he does that, there's this new thing they feature called the Dome. And it's like, this is where some of the bad CGI comes in, but Andy Muschietti talked about it being intentional. This specifically doesn't bother me as much as I thought it would after seeing the leaks online, because on this one, is CGI kind of like in the Scorpion King of Mummy Returns, but it's an aesthetic that's almost like a painting, you know? It's almost like Barry Allen's mind and him going through his memories. I wish we got more Henry Cavill than just a shirtless CG cameo, but it was cool seeing the actual Snyder Cut footage of that fight and Aquaman pointing at Barry Allen. That was cool. Basically seeing how he's dealing with his younger self in this universe and trying to stop Zod. So he has to get the band back together. And then we get to a Siberian area where they have an alien captured and think it's Superman. Of course, we know it's Kara Zor-El. Sasha Calle, this is the one part of the film that I was highly anticipating. The first Latina Supergirl. And she's not in it enough. Not the way the trailers made it out. Like, it's just kind of put on there. And the third act is really rushed. The villain's just kind of tacked on. I love what they did there. If you know the Flash comics and if you know the Flash TV show, they basically pull a Savitar. And while it's cool and the way they do it, with it being a very old Barry Allen, like gray-haired, it's really awesome what they did there. I still think it could have been done better. I think it was done better in The Flash. Even though they have more time in the TV show, there are some moments from individual episodes that I thought were done better and more efficiently than this film. Something about the third act to me just felt jumbled. And that's sad because I was really digging this film for the first two acts. But it's an enjoyable film despite my nitpicks. And we get to the Black Zero event. And this is where I have a problem with the CGI. The regular CGI, it's not that it's just bad. People said it's like a PS2 or 3 cutscene. To me, it looks like the Injustice game from PS3, but it's more in the fact that it doesn't look as polished. Like, I think it could look better. I don't know if Warner's was losing money. I don't know if they were lazy on this. They held it... They shelved the film for too long. I don't know, but something about it looks like it's unfinished. It's like when you watch the deleted scenes on superhero movies and you see like the rendered footage that's not completely finished rendering. It's like the pre-visualization. That's what it kind of looks like in some portions. The land is just very generic. It feels like it's made by a committee. It misses the soul and artistry that was in Man of Steel and some of the other DCEU films, even like Wonder Woman from Patty Jenkins. Or Shazam! Fury of the Gods even had more artistry with David Sandberg and how they did the villains and the dragons, I thought, than this final battle. It just felt generic. I love seeing the Batwing, though. The Batwing was awesome in this, the way they utilized music. It would have been cool if they put a little bit of Man of Steel score in there with there. But I love how this Kara Zor-El is Kal-El's cousin. It's just a shame we won't have Sasha Calle interact with Henry Cavill. Make Woman of Tomorrow with her. Seriously. Like, do it. ASAP. But I love the fight there. I love how they team up and realizing they're in a no-win scenario. And Barry, of course, has to end up fighting the other Barry who's like super annoying and he becomes evil. And it's about rectifying the past. We get to see the multiverse start breaking down because of his actions. This is where I have mixed feelings. I don't have a problem with the CG if they have the estate's, the family's estate, like, permission. If they have, like, Christopher Reeve, for example, is in this film. If they have his son's permission to use his likeness, I don't mind it because they did that with Peter Cushing and Rogue One. They did it with Carrie Fisher when she was still alive. Like, they did it with Carrie Fisher when she passed away. The daughter, Billie Lourd, played Princess Leia, the permission to use Carrie Fisher's likeness. I don't mind that. I don't. But if they didn't ask the estate's permission, the family's permission, it just is done in poor taste, I think. It's cool seeing Adam West. It's cool seeing George Reeve. I did love that the fact that Christopher Reeve was next to Helen Slater's Supergirl. That was badass. And you know, it kind of upsets me because Brandon Routh was right there. Christopher Reeve's successor was right there, and he could have been used in some way. Nicolas Cage was a complete surprise. They pretty much showed us every Superman except the one we wanted to see with Henry Cavill. That being said, though, I was upset that they leaked them. And I was upset that they're the only cameos. We also had an older Flash that was from the TV show that was in the George Reeves universe, but I'm like, that's a missed opportunity to show the other Arrowverse shows, show the DCEU, show the other DC Comics films, show other incarnations that we haven't seen, show like Smallville. I felt like they could have shown more. You know, it's not that the cameos were bad, but it's just like the ones they decided to show, I'm like, he could have done something really cool and just showed the entire freaking DC multiverse as a whole. And it would have been a celebration of the past 40 years. People have said that this film is that. In some ways, yes. In other ways, I feel like it's overhyped. It's not the best it could have been. And that's sad because then, like, they could have done something really special and respectful, I think. That just rubbed me the wrong way. I already had reservations about this because of Ezra Miller's behavior, but like that was just like, it felt cheap. It felt soulless. It was done kind of half-assed. I mean, some of the renderings I did for my Crisis on Infinite Earths fan trailer, which I thought looked like shit, looked better than that. And it just surprises me with the budget and everything. Despite that, though, there were cool moments. And I love how this film wraps up Barry's story in a way. Henry Allen gets out. This film also has some very emotional moments that almost made me tear up at the end. That scene with his mother is just heartbreaking. But then we have the ending, which originally was supposed to be Michael Keaton and Sasha Calle merged into the universe. I remember hearing that. I hated that idea, but I loved how they were going to add Affleck trapped in the Nightmare timeline, and it mirrors, or should I say parallels, BVS. You need to find us. You need to find me. Help us. I wanted to see the Darkseid invasion, but this is cool with Crisis on Infinite Earths. Instead, we get George Clooney. And Barry kind of has a reaction that I felt of like, who the fuck are you? But I was like, what the fuck? Like, okay, I'm mixed on this because I don't like George Clooney. He's my least favorite Batman. And this is not the first time WB killed Michael Keaton's Batman universe and replaced it with Clooney. Let me tell you that. However, this ending is going to be affected on whether or not George Clooney will be the DCU's Batman or not. Because if he is, I think I'd be more okay with it in the fact that he can be a father to Damian, but then you can also see redemption. I don't like him as Bruce Wayne. I don't think he acted as a good Batman, but now that he's older, after Ocean's 11 and stuff, after Oscars, maybe if he's given the right material, we might see some redemption with George Clooney as Bruce Wayne / Batman. I don't know. But if this is it for the DCU, that's a waste. That's a waste. I'm sorry. They could have ended it with Ben Affleck back, everybody alive. Henry Cavill could have been there meeting his cousin. They could have merged the cousin into the regular DCEU, and it could have been a nice bow tie. And then they could have said, there's a strand of a multiverse out there. So the DCEU is still intact, which it still is, by the way. But it would have been still intact, and then James Gunn could take place on another strand. And that's where the DCU is. That would have been a nice way to give fans of the DCEU closure, while also paving the path for what's to come. The thing is, I'm not so sure on James Gunn. I rather have had a hard reboot. I did not like the firing of Henry Cavill. I don't like them rebooting everything. But it really irks me when you're going to pick and choose who you're going to reboot and just do a half-assed job at it. Reboot all or don't reboot at all. I don't think it was necessary. And I think another thing besides the effects that held this film back was a comedy. There's a difference between like having fun and then making fun of characters, making them into a joke. That rubbed me the wrong way. And in that, it felt like a 90s movie in a bad way. And that's not just The Flash. It's a lot of superhero movies. Ant-Man, Quantumania. There's so many other films where I'm like, Blank Man and Mystery Men back in the day probably were more serious and have more stakes than some modern-day superhero movies. And that's saying a lot. But that being said, it sounds like I really hate The Flash. I don't, actually. I think it's better than Justice League, even though some of the effects reminded me of Justice League. And I think it's better than Suicide Squad. But I don't know if I would like it more than Black Adam. I think Black Adam was just a bit more polished effects-wise on that front, but it's probably like around that range. Nowhere near Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Shazam, Aquaman, or Zack Snyder's Justice League, or even James Gunn's The Suicide Squad for me. I really love that film, but the comedy has kind of knocked it down a couple of notches. So I have to reflect on my ranking, but it's not the worst, but it's not the best. However, it is the most fun and entertaining, and I had a blast watching this. Some parts put a smile on my face. I think that's what frustrates me more, is that there's moments of greatness in this film that are just undermined by sloppiness, laziness, and just stupid comedy. And I'm like, why did they do that? But I accept the comedy more in a Flash film because Flash is more lighthearted, you know. And I did like that they acknowledged Vic Stone and the other metahumans and stuff and certain events. I think they could have done more to honor DC Comics. But if I had to give it a score, I'm probably between a 2.5 to 3 out of 5. Probably 3 out of 5 because of Michael Keaton's Batman, Ben Affleck's Batman, and then Ezra Miller's performance as the Flash was easily the best part about this. And sometimes it's hard when you look at like Kevin Spacey films, Mel Gibson, Roman Polanski, Woody Allen. Sometimes, despite real life craziness, you have to separate the artist from the art. And I think his chances are slim for a sequel. It surprised me if he stays. Like, if Henry Cavill's fired and he stays, that surprised the hell out of me. But if he does, maybe this can be like a multiverse movie series like Spider-Man, where he has to work with George Clooney, and then you get to see more heroes from DC's past, and he's trying to get back to his universe, the whole trilogy. That would be cool. In addition, though, the spaghetti theory with the multiverse allows for Zack Snyder's Justice League and the DCEU to continue on its own. So why not make Wonder Woman 3 and Justice League 2 and 3 into an Elseworlds film now? Anything and everything is possible in a multiverse, and that's what I love about it. I don't know why people complain, we need this, we don't need that. I'm like, why not have it all? Fans can have the best of both worlds and they still make a ton of money. I'm just saying. But it makes me wonder how Batgirl was like, because I don't imagine Batgirl being any worse than this in some aspects, but I really did enjoy it. And despite the nitpicks I have there, I really wish we had more Supergirl. Like, she kicked ass. I would have loved to see her fight Fiora. Missed opportunity there. They brought back Fiora, Zod. There was a nice little callback, though, with was it Nam? The giant guy that is in Zod's team. He jumps on the Batwing the same way he jumped on the Air Force jet in Man of Steel, and that was cool. That was really cool. But yeah, I think I really enjoyed this film up until the very end. The very ending just left a sour taste in my mouth. I didn't see the Aquaman scene. I saw it leaked, but I didn't see it in the mid-credits, so it must have been after. That's a joke. Like, Aquaman's been made into a joke from Peacemaker and this and the theatrical Justice League. It's like, I can't believe after what Zack Snyder and James Wan did that they just made fist jokes. I mean, he's pretty much like the way he was Super Friends era or even Smallville. Like, they made him into a joke. Like, why? At this point, I think the Smallville Aquaman's taken more seriously than Jason Momoa's Aquaman now. And then I don't have much faith in Aquaman Lost Kingdom with James Wan saying they changed a lot of stuff. I'm not 100% sold on James Gunn's DCU now with a comedy. I hope he surprised me with Superman Legacy and stuff. I wish him the best of luck, and I hope most of the films, like I said earlier a couple of months ago in my videos, I hope that the slate gets made, because when they had the DCEU slate, half that stuff did not get made. I hope they get made. But for me as a fan, I'm checked out right now. And this was kind of like a nice epilogue to what was the Snyder Cut and the Suicide Squad in 2021 and Black Adam. Just a lot of potential just kind of wasted, and that's just bittersweet and sad. 10 years after Man of Steel, you know. It honors it in a way, but then it's bittersweet in the way of, like, you could think of, like, what could have been, you know. They finally were finding their footing, and I think things were going to change, and then slate's just wiped clean and rebooted. And that's sad, but one thing I have to say about all these films in the DCEU is I loved how each film was different. Each filmmaker had their own eye and aesthetic to the stories and characters. And we'll see what happens in the future, but for me right now, I'm checked out. It was a nice ride. It wasn't the best movie ever, but it certainly was not nearly as bad as what some people are making it out to be. And again, don't be a toxic asshole out there. Just don't. Like, just don't. Just because you like Snyder stuff doesn't make you a DC fan. Just because you like other DC stuff doesn't mean you're not a Snyder fan. It's like, what self-respecting DC fan would not want to see the Justice League fight Darkseid, or see Martian Manhunter, or see Superman and Supergirl interact? Like, seriously, ask yourself that. What real DC fan would not want to see that? Grow up, touch some grass, and be respectful to each other out there. Let me know what you thought of The Flash. And, yeah, I got a cup, actually, at the theater. That wasn't too bad. Yeah, those are just my quick thoughts. I want to do a spoiler talk on this. I've gone over some of the other DCEU films. I haven't gone over Shazam! Fury of the Gods, but I did see it. I didn't like it as much as the first, but it definitely was more entertaining than the trailers made out to be, you know. This one, I think they showed a little bit too much, but again, that might have been the Ezra case and then the leaks. I haven't been that killed over a film since the James Bond outcome in No Time to Die got leaked 2 weeks ahead of the release. Like, the leaks ruined it. Why did WB not take it down? Were they trying to create hype? I don't know. But I saw all over YouTube, Twitter, like, it was just impossible. And it pissed me off because I think I would have enjoyed this film a lot more if I saw it, like, weeks earlier like everyone else did. Like, seriously. Yeah. But that being said, I want to see Sasha Kaya back as a Woman of Tomorrow. I don't know if Ezra Miller's coming back, but I hope that they're healthy now. And hopefully they have their shit together. And Michael Keaton, It would have been great to see him in a Batman Beyond film, or even Tim Burton come back to direct him in Batman, but at least we're getting Beetlejuice 2. And if this is the last to see of Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck's Batman, it wasn't bad. It was enjoyable while it lasted, and we can stop to wonder what could have been and just accept what is and be grateful for what we have. 10 years ago, I couldn't even imagine a DCU or a Justice League film. We got Flash, Wonder Woman, and Batman, like multiple Batmans in the same film. Did you think that was possible 10 years ago? Make your own future, make your own past. It's all right now. Anything is possible. May everyone stay safe and healthy. Let me know your thoughts on The Flash. In the meantime, you can check out these other Flash DC Comics related videos for more content. I may have a ranking coming up soon, as well as a Transformers film ranking. Continue to be kind out there, polite to other people, help each other. Let's be our own heroes for once. Till next time, everyone.